So, wipe your eyes, guys. There's still a little bit more game to go. You kind of see what I mean now. Earlier when I was talking about metaphorical things that happen, supernatural things that happen in the game that have no real logical explanation. Like, was that just a narrative-driven imagery there with the white field of flowers turning to red, and then the boss's scar turning into a snake and slithering away? But I think we're meant to take those images literally. Because we just saw that little feather fly out. As soon as Snake kills the boss, the pure and white field of flowers turns blood red, as though he has sinned, which he has greatly. Especially if you consider the context of the rest of the series. And then when he lets go of that one leaf, not feather. Feathers don't grow on plants, Brickroad. Once he lets go of that one petal that blows out of his hand, and then it turns white again. Big Boss is the villain of Metal Gear Solid. From the beginning, this character, even though this is his origin story, and this character too, this friggin' guy right here, God bless him.
Ocelot.
Big Boss is the villain, and this game is about his sin. And his sin in killing the boss is the linchpin for everything that happens in the rest of this series. The boss talks about having seen a vision of a united world. When the U.S. sends her to space and she looks down at Earth and she sees one united Earth, and she sees the way to get that by using the Philosopher's Legacy, by bringing together all of these agencies in the world that were once cooperative and are now enemies during the Cold War. But then Big Boss kills her because of the petty squabbling of the U.S. and the USSR. All of the various pieces in motion, Big Boss has no choice but to kill her. But everybody in this game has such a strong relationship with the boss, and the rest of the series. The next game chronologically is Peace Walker, then Ground Zeroes, then Phantom Pain, then Twin Snakes, then Sons of Liberty, and then Guns of the Patriots at the end, is the culmination of everything that started here. How Big Boss tries to realize the boss's will, what he does to make that happen because of his reverence for her. But of course, unlike the boss, he's not pure. He didn't have that same vision of the full united world. His concept of her ideas is incomplete. And the way it's incomplete ends up shaping the rest of the series.
Not good.
Ocelot's just a jerk. Ocelot just wants more screen time. He's just like, you know what? I ain't got no camera in a while. You done skipped all those scenes where I was chasing you around on a bike. So, the first time I played this game, I mean, it got to me. It got to me way down deep, this character of the boss that I came to love and respect so much over the course of the game. And then my character's wearing the friggin' Japanese kabuki face paint because I didn't know about the CQC counters the first time I played the game. I never used CQC the first time I played the game. I was just not good at it. So that fight, I turned on the thermals, I stayed across the map, and I sniped her. The first time with the SVD, the second time I played, I had got the Mosin Nagant because I managed to stamina kill the end. But yeah, the first few times I played this game, it was all about sniping her from across the map. It wasn't until years into the game that I realized, oh, you're supposed to try to CQC her.
It doesn't feel right to shoot an unarmed man.
Usually I'm critical when the game when games introduce gameplay elements at the 11th hour. There's nobody else in the game you can counter CQC. It doesn't work like that. But narratively, the boss is the only character in the game who uses CQC. So, introducing that gameplay element literally in the final battle of the game, even though it's a faux pas 99% of the time, it works narratively in this game. That's Kojima, again, using gameplay to tell the story. This is the one and only time in the game you can CQC counter somebody. And it's because she and you are the only people who really use this fighting style.
Yeah, all right.
So neither of you have the upper hand. Speaking of upper hand, Ocelot still wants to shoot us. This is probably a great scene too. I'm sorry for talking so much about the previous scene over this one, but I just couldn't talk over the previous scene. I just couldn't. All those boss scenes, we had to just let those run. We'll watch him juggle for a minute, I guess. What kind of shoes do you have? Nice shoes. There, I complimented your shoes. Now Rusky Pride demands that you give me a key. And don't try to kill me.
What's your name? Snake.
I love this part.
No. Not that name. You're not a snake, and I'm not an ocelot. We're men with names. My name is Adamska. What's yours?
John.
Very well, John. Plain name. But I won't forget it.
Every single scene in Metal Gear Solid, all from the beginning of 1 all the way to the end of 5, Ocelot's playing somebody. Every scene he's in, he's not being genuine. He's got layers and layers of something preventing him from being genuine. That's the only scene in the entire series where I think Ocelot is being himself. That's the only scene where he says his name, and he demands of someone else to say their name. And it's because Ocelot has the hots for Snake. It's because he is obsessed with Snake in this game and wants to know more about him, and wants to be like him, and wants to serve under him. So that's the one scene in the series where all of the curtains fall away and we see pure Ocelot just in his own skin for the only time in the series. I'm going to shoot Ocelot here. We're going to shoot him. Shoot him. Get him. Oh, I've been through more than 6 shots. There's no bullet in this gun. Oh, this is going to end badly, John. Oh, he had the bullet. The very, very tail end of Metal Gear Solid 4, the very last fight of that game. The last boss of MGS4 is Ocelot, and Solid Snake beating the crap out of him.
It's a blank.
The very end of that
Oh, that was fun.
scene, you kind of see Ocelot in his own flesh again, but only sort of. I think this scene in the wig is the only time we see the real Ocelot. Because he doesn't quite know what to make of Snake, except he knows that he reveres Snake in a similar way that Snake reveres the boss. I don't have time to get into it in this video, but if you ever are playing any other Metal Gear game or trying to figure this guy out, trying to figure out what Ocelot is doing, what his goals are, who he's working with, who he's working for, what are his motivations, what the hell's up with this guy? Every action he takes from this point of the series until the end of MGS4 is in the service of Big Boss. Either helping Big Boss stay alive, or helping Big Boss come back to life, or trying to find the location of Big Boss in his coma, or trying to recover Big Boss's remains, or trying to build on Big Boss's legacy. Whatever the case may be. Make no mistake, he's always working for Big Boss. Even after Big Boss is out of the picture, which is for most of the MGS series. There's a lot more explanation we could get into about Ocelot, and I kind of do someday want to make a video explaining more about Ocelot, because he's a character you have to pay so much attention to very little details that correlate only weakly across a lot of the games just to figure out what his deal is. Because playing the games, it just feels like he's on whoever's side at the moment who's winning. It is just Ocelot's always on the winning side. Whoever happens to be winning at this moment, that's who Ocelot's working for. And Kojima wrote it that way. I mean, I'm sure he wrote it that way because he wanted to have a character who's always one step ahead of the player. Don't worry, guys. The horse is fine. The horse comes back in Peace Walker. So, so in MGS1, he's working for Liquid Snake, but he's not working for Liquid Snake. He's working for the president. And then in MGS2, he's working for the president who's Solid Snake, but he's not working for Solid Snake. He's working for the Patriots, and he betrays Solid Snake. In MGS4, he's working for the Patriots, and he's not working for the Patriots. He's trying to bring the Patriots down. He's working for himself, but it's not really himself. It's Liquid Snake who's living with his arm, so he's working for his arm. All of that is BS. He's working for Big Boss the entire time. It's like an onion, this guy. Just layers and layers and layers of betrayal.
It's no use. There's no way we can outmaneuver them.
So the other thing about Ocelot that you really have to dig into this game to find is that the boss speaks about having a child at Normandy who was taken from her by the philosophers. That child was Ocelot. You find out over the course of this game, if you dig really deep into some of the radio calls, you gotta piece it together. But then that document of MGS4 that got released that I mentioned a few videos ago, that spells it out very plainly. The boss and the Sorrow have a son, and that son is Ocelot. One of the things about this series is that genetics plays a big role in it. Metal Gear Solid 1 was all about genetics, and all through the series, genetic plays a big role, because in this universe, in the Metal Gear universe, destiny is genetic. Fate is genetic. Anytime you see two characters in this series who are connected genetically, especially parents and children, the children always follow the same paths as their parents. Either by trying to accomplish the same things their parents were accomplished, trying to fulfill their parents' destiny, or by railing against their parents, trying to stop their parents' destiny from coming to fruition. And in some ways, the whole series is about that. It's about Solid Snake, Big Boss's son, railing against his father's vision for a world at eternal war. That's kind of what the series is about at its heart.
You made it out alive.
And
Khrushchev is with us. I don't think they'll be coming
Ocelot's involvement in that genetic destiny idea is kind of subtle, because he gets something from each of his parents that you only see if you really look for. From the Sorrow, he has a latent ability to interact with the dead, and we see that when Liquid Snake's arm takes his body over in Metal Gear Solid 2. I don't think that would have been possible with anybody else but Ocelot, but Ocelot has that genetic predisposition that the Sorrow had, that got passed down. And then from the boss, what he inherited, yeah, we'll save at the end of the game here, and then I'll talk about what Ocelot inherited from the boss. That was a fun save screen. So I'm not going to talk over the very last few cutscenes, Snake's debriefing of the mission, so I just kind of want to complete this thought before we get to that cutscene. The boss's highest ideal was loyalty. Eva's going to explain how that jives with her whole, defecting to the USSR thing. She's going to put some context to that in the debriefing scenes here in a minute. The boss's highest ideal is loyalty. That's the thing that she cherishes more than anything else in the world. And that is the quality that Ocelot inherits from the boss, is loyalty. And that sounds completely insane, given the way Ocelot acts in the other 5 games in this series. But, not 5 games, he's not in Peace Walker. Other 4 games in this series, because he doesn't make an appearance in Peace Walker, which is sad. But, everything he does from this point on is out of loyalty to Big Boss. Everything he does in Metal Gear Solid 1, all the backstabbing he does in Metal Gear Solid 2, all the crazy nanomachine, genetic manipulation, drugs and psychotherapy, all the stuff he gets up to in Metal Gear Solid 4, it's all in service to Big Boss.
I don't take orders from anyone.
So Ocelot gets something from both of his parents, and it's kind of subtle unless you're looking for it, because in both ways it's almost a twisted version of what his parents had. In order to remain loyal to Big Boss, Ocelot throughout the series has to wear a lot of hats and betray a lot of people and agencies. But that's kind of why Ocelot's my favorite character in this series, because he's so complex and he's so silly at the same time. He's such a weird guy and you can never really figure him out, but the more you look for, like, the deeper you look into what he's doing and why, the more you're rewarded if you're a fan of this series. Which I am. I have to, like I said, I am a unrepentant Metal Gear fanboy. I love Kojima's writing style in this series. Even the foibles, even the stuff that technically counts as bad writing. I'm a fan, and Ocelot is my favorite character for those reasons. Because it was very clear that Kojima wrote each of his appearances just in the moment. What does Ocelot need to do to make this game work? And this scene in this game, who does Ocelot have to screw over to make this one scene work? But in the end, he kind of tortures it all back together, covers up all the plot holes, because Ocelot is loyal in the end, to a fault. And now we're coming up on the debriefing, guys. Again, prepare for all the feels. It's gonna get emotional up ins. It's gonna get really emotional, and then it's gonna get silly for about 2 seconds, and then it's gonna get really emotional again until the credits. So I will see you guys
Scholars tell us that the first spy in history was
at the credits.
snake in the book of Genesis. In that story, it was Eve who was tempted by the snake in the Garden of Eden. But this time around, it was I who tempted the snake and got away with the forbidden fruit of knowledge. Forgive me, Snake. I wasn't sent by Khrushchev. I'm not a KGB spy, and I never worked for the NSA.
I'm an agent of the People's Republic of China for the General HQ 2nd Department of the People's Liberation Army. It was all a lie. I tricked you. And I'm sorry.
The philosophers still exist in China, too. You see, my mission was to find out where Volgin was hiding the philosopher's legacy and steal it. So I infiltrated his base as a KGB spy. The 2 NSA codebreakers who defected in 1960 were actually both men. The real Adam never showed up at the meeting place, saving me the trouble of having to eliminate him. I sneaked in by pretending I was Eva. And you and Sokolov and Volgin, you all believed me. The philosopher's legacy was originally held in common between the US, Soviet Union, and China. We couldn't let the Russians and the Americans take it all for themselves. The Chinese government had its eye on the legacy, too. I got the film containing the legacy, and also the nuclear missile launch data from the Shagohod. 5 years ago, the Soviet Union stopped supplying us with nuclear weapons technology. Since then, China's Liaodong easing, hydrogen bomb, and space rocket projects have fallen behind. But with this data, our country will be able to develop its own nukes. We'll create a deterrent force to rival those of the US and Soviet Union. Everything has gone according to plan, thanks to your help. I too am one of the philosophers. I'm an agent of the philosophers, a graduate of one of their charm schools. I was raised in a joint US-Soviet-Chinese facility to become a sleeper agent. This was before the war. Back then, they were collecting children from all over the world. As a result, I'm indistinguishable from a native-born American. So it didn't surprise me when you and Volgin couldn't tell the difference. But she knew right from the beginning. She knew because before the war, she was at one of the philosopher's schools too, as an instructor. The boss was the only one I couldn't fool. She was the only one who knew I was a fake. She told me everything. Why did she open her heart to me like that? At the time, I couldn't understand it. But now, I think I do. Snake. She wanted you to know the truth. She chose me to tell you. That's why she saved my life. I've lied to you so many times, but not this time. My orders from the government were to obtain the legacy. And to eliminate everyone who knew the truth about what happened. In other words, I'm supposed to kill you. But I can't do it. Not because we loved each other. And not because you saved my life. But because I made a promise to the boss. And I intend to keep it. I just wanted you to know. And you have to live. Snake, listen to me. She didn't betray the United States. No. Far from it. She was a hero who died for her country. She carried out her mission knowing full well what was going to happen. Self-sacrifice. Because that was her duty.
You are above even the boss. I hereby award you the title of Big Boss. You are a true patriot.
In the army. Someone like him to handle our top secret sneaking missions for us. A man who combines the qualities of a soldier and an agent.
The boss's defection was a ruse set up by the US government. It was all a big drama staged by Washington so they could get their hands on the philosopher's legacy. And the boss was the star of the show. They planned it so that they could get the legacy that Colonel Volgin inherited and destroy the Shagohod at the same time. Only a legendary hero like the boss could have earned Volgin's trust. Finding out where the philosopher's legacy was hidden was to be her greatest mission. Everything was going according to plan. But then something happened that no one could have predicted. Colonel Volgin fired an American-made nuclear warhead at Sokolov's research facility. Khrushchev demanded that the US government provide proof that it wasn't involved. They couldn't just abort the operation to steal the legacy. So the operation itself was greatly expanded and revised. The authorities in Washington knew that in order to prove its innocence, they'd have to get rid of the boss, and that one of their own would have to do the job. The public couldn't be allowed to find out about it. Not ever. This, they concluded, would be the best way to keep the whole thing under wraps. The boss wouldn't be allowed to come back home alive, and she wouldn't be allowed to kill herself. Her life would be ended by her most beloved disciple. That was the way the government wanted it. That was the mission she was given, and she had no choice but to carry it out. Her death at your hands was a duty she had to fulfill. Out of duty, she turned her back on her own comrades. A lesser woman would have been crushed by such a burden. The taint of disgrace will follow her to her grave. Future generations will revile her. In America as a despicable traitor with no sense of honor. And in Russia as a monster who unleashed a nuclear catastrophe. She will go down in official history as a war criminal. And no one will ever understand her. That was her final mission. And like a true soldier, she saw it through to the end. But I think she wanted you, of all people, to know the truth. She wanted to live on in your memory. Not as a soldier, but as a woman. But she was forbidden to tell you herself. And that's why she told me. Snake, history will never know what she did. No one will ever learn the truth. Her story, her debriefing, will endure only in your heart. Everything she did for her country. She sacrificed her life and her honor for her native land. She was a real hero. She was a true patriot.
You've got a way to fall. They'll tell you where to go, but they won't know. So you'd better take it off. They'll tell you what they know, but they won't show. Oh, I've got something in my throat. I need to be alone while I suffer. Son, you've got a way to kill. They're picking on you still, but they don't know. Son, you'd better wait to shine. They'll tell you what is yours, but they take mine. Oh, I've got something in my throat. I need to be alone while I suffer. Oh, there's a hole inside my bones. I need to stay afloat for the summer, Lord. I've got something in my throat. I need to be alone while I suffer. There's a hole inside my bones. I need to stay afloat for the summer. Son, you better wait to fall. They'll tell you where to go, but they won't know.
I mentioned a few times during this Let's Play a playthrough that my wife Peanut did of it, and she doesn't play games. She's bad at video games. She doesn't really enjoy them that much. She doesn't play them with me very often, but she wanted to play a game and wanted me to suggest which game to play, and I picked this game because to kind of understand why I love video games so much as a medium, this game is such an excellent example of why. It's that important to me. I feel very connected to it, having played it many times and having gotten so close to the heart of Metal Gear Solid 3 that that's the game that came to mind when she wanted to play something that was important to me. And I'm very glad that I finally got the chance to play it for all of you as well. I hope you all enjoyed watching, and I hope you all learned something, got a little something from it. I hope I was able to put a playthrough of MGS3 on the internet that is a little unique, that was not just repaving the ground that everybody else has already done. I know I'm not the best player in the game. I know that I'm probably a little too forgiving of Kojima's narrative foibles, but I'm glad to have gone through this with you guys. This was one of the more stressful Let's Plays that I've recorded, I will admit. This required a lot of planning and practicing, and even with all the planning and practicing, you saw how narrowly I got through some of these areas. Oh, Zalzuri West, my eternal nemesis. And now, as is series tradition, we're going to get Ocelotting. Just a little bit. Because he's Ocelot, he's got one more trick up his sleeve.
Yes, Grozny Grad and the Granin Research Facility have both been wiped out without a trace. I understand, sir, but they were necessary sacrifices. Yes, the CIA has taken care of the boss themselves. I believe the White House will be satisfied. Khrushchev is finished. Your time has finally arrived. Yes, the American president is relying on us to keep a lid on the whole affair. We've got him by the balls. It should make a valuable trump card in future negotiations. Yes, Chief Director, of course. I'll keep the KGB informed.
That was Ocelot playing the KGB. Here's the real phone call.
Yes, it's me. The boss has accomplished her mission. The philosopher's legacy is now safely with us, in America's hands. With this money, yes, the philosophers can finally be revived. The film we handed the Chinese was a fake. Peking must be in an uproar right about now. I'm afraid so. Only half the money has made it back to the United States. The KGB must still have part of the legacy. Yes, the weapon has been reduced to ashes. That's right. Grozny Grad has been obliterated by the Davy Crockett we brought in as well. Yes, that was the boss's work too. Speaking of which, I've obtained something from Granin that you might find interesting. It's a revolutionary new nuclear attack system.
Metal Gear!
Perhaps it might just come in handy someday. Yes, we have Snake to thank for that. Khrushchev believed it as well.
Note that little slip up there where he says John instead of Snake.
Yes, they bought our story.
The facade does slip whenever Big Boss is involved.
The secondary alert has been lifted as well. And the Soviets still haven't discovered my true identity. They have no idea that I've been triple-crossing them. I will continue my activities as a contact for the new government. Yes, it appears that no one knew that I was Adam. Of course, I am always at the CIA's disposal, Mr. Director.
And that's Ocelot playing the CIA. But that's a story for another time. Let's get our ranking screen here, see how many people we accidentally killed. 8.5 hours. Saved 10 times, continued 8 times, 44 alerts, 5 humans killed. I bet some of those were in. Some of those had to have been during the motorcycle chase, throwing rockets. Used 4 life meds, most of those in the final battle with the boss. My title is Kerotan. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Mr. Kojima, for giving us this treasure of a video game. And hashtag Konami. Shoutouts to A Cardboard Box, who sponsored this video, and to everybody who makes my channel possible by supporting me on Patreon.